Hey Dylan, thanks for taking my call.
Hey Dylan, big fan of the show.
Huge fan of the show, love what you're doing.
Such a big fan of the show. I'm so glad to have a minute of your time.
Hi, Dylan. It's Gavin.
Dude, Dylan.
Look, I cannot help you. I'm sorry. It's not hard to understand, okay? So here's my thought. You would be crazy to think that. Zach, how do you feel about organic starts to like podcasts? Because I don't know, sometimes it's awkward, but because like it's almost like you walked into a room and people were already talking and you're like, right. What did they just say? But then you're in.
The in media race start. Yeah, of course. I usually like it, use that as a cold open, then drop it into an intro and then right into the start.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of figure out what works, but you test the waters.
Yeah. Whatever feels natural.
Well, Zach, welcome in to the Dylan Network. Zach Dunn is here. Zach, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. Period. Just in general. In general. And so I'm glad you got to come on because Stranger Things 4 came out Memorial Day weekend. Volume 1, I guess you could call it. The first 7 episodes of the 4th season. And we are now 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from 4th of July and 1 week away.
10 days pretty much, yeah. I think, from the news from volume 2.
Yeah. And so I wanted to have Zach on. We're gonna talk Stranger Things 4. I'm gonna say spoilers right up front. I finished it this last weekend. This is like the 3rd week of June. I was a little late, but I'm here. And I did it in 3 days. How long did it take you?
I think it was under 24 hours. I think I've watched every season so far in a 24-hour span.
Wow, yeah. I
don't do that a lot.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, so spoilers across the board. Zach and I are going to get into it because truly because for me, coming off of Season 3, you loved Season 3. Mm-hmm. I was in I need to give it a rewatch. I need to give it another go. But coming off 3, we've had like a, 3-year layoff? Oh, shit. 3-year layoff, and here, let me switch this real quick. And now we have the conclusion. This is it. This is how it ends.
No, not quite. We got another season coming after this.
Right. But how this season ends, I guess, is it's going to be a challenge.
We're in the end game now, that's for sure.
It feels, and I heard like the directors were saying something like this, that this finale is going to be Infinity War-esque. And I would say while I was watching it, this is it was a shocking amount of like just hype and build. Like this, the world, the characters, as it was all coming together. We're back in Hawkins. Some people are in California. Some people are in Russia. We're all spread out, but we're clearly building towards this crazy event television. And I got to say, the thing that like kept me going, and I had this thought quite a bit, was, dude, we're watching new Stranger Things right now. This is we're in a tiny pocket where like the wish is always right. Like, oh man, I wish I could rewatch the Harry Potter series from beginning to end. I wish I could, forget it, obliviate me. Let me rewatch that again. And I'm just trying to go, how can we just take in just as the kids get older, we feel like parents, right? We're like, shoot, we're running out of time. Like Sadie Sink is 20 years old. Sadie Sink is 20 years old. That's wrong. What are we doing?
No, you're absolutely right. I think, and like I mentioned, this is a show that every season I've watched, as soon as, because I remember being, I think, a sophomore in college, scrolling through Netflix, saw the first season, had not heard anything about it. It really didn't come out with a lot of fanfare. And I watched the first episode and was so immediately hooked that I don't binge watch shows. I like to, kind of let these things be paced out, especially if I really like it. I don't want to, consume it so fast that I don't have any more. I can't do that with Stranger Things. So I watched all of that in one sitting. I stayed up late to watch season 2. Season 3 came out when I was visiting you for a 4th of July trip years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Came back from that trip immediately, binge watched season 3. Same thing this year. I got back from Denver, sat down, said, hey, nobody talked to me for the next day. Stranger Things to watch.
Yeah.
Because I get that feeling, and that always there's that moment in the first episode when you first are seeing all these characters. It's been years since you've last seen that I just get this huge smile on my face that, oh my God, we're back in Hawkins, we're back with these people that I love. And it's a special feeling. It's like you said, it's event television in a way that, we haven't really had since, like a Game of Thrones kind of thing where it comes out and it's what everybody talks about. So, have you seen it yet? And, getting to unpack all those moments with your friends is such a fun social experience with this show.
It's funny too, because like they're releasing it in kind of a unique way where they put out the first 7 episodes and then we just have 2 more pretty lengthy episodes. I think one's like an hour and a half, one's going to be 2.5 hours, and I do love that. Yeah, I believe that's what it is. It's like, and dude, each episode was about an hour 22 or about an hour 17, in that ballpark. Flew by. Like, I could not believe it. So what I'll say about Stranger Things 4 is that it brought me back to season 1, which season 1 is my favorite.
Yep,
and
agreed. I agree with both those sentiments.
Just opening up with like this crazy scene, and we're in the hospital, and it's we're in the lab, and it's just immediately it's presenting this idea that 11 was this monster, which we know that 11 has these crazy powers.
Killed some people as a child. Like, that's an intense character already.
And now we're seeing what I thought, and maybe we still will get to, will be leading to her then fleeing to Benny's or whatnot, where we're almost there, but we get to see this kind of tease at the beginning where they're like, oh look, 11's a monster and the season's going to be about dealing with how she's a monster.
Yeah.
And as you peel back those onions, and everything is just not what it seems, of just like every death, every curse, but then it's also like we're playing Dungeons and Dragons again. The villain is a Dungeons and Dragons character. We get that Dungeons and Dragons scene paired with a game-winning basketball shot, and the Dungeons and Dragons scenes is more exciting and cooler. And
wow,
I don't know if it's the Vegas in us and the dice, but I was just like, oh,
there's just something about rolling those rocks that just gets you
to the death. Like,
you're so right. I absolutely adored the way this season started, and yep, I completely agree that season 1 is my favorite, and this had the most season 1 feel to it. So much so is because we got to start out with this spooky mystery, where season 1 had that because this is a new world that you're discovering. But by the end of season 1, most of the main characters know what's going on with the Upside Down and with the government labs, and a lot of the mystique has been unfolded. So season 2 and 3 kind of have to move into this other genre, but the start of this season, we get to experience that kind of twisted sense of wonder, and that twisted sense of wonder, I think, can easily become horror. And this is definitely the scariest season so far. But getting to deal with just even those scenes at the trailer park in episodes 1 and 2, when Nancy's there investigating, and just the tension and kind of that tightness in your gut you get watching this season is something we've missed since season 1, because they do all this genre hopping, but getting to come back to that in this season with all of our characters being more mature and more grown up, and we basically have cut almost all of the young children things. Because I remember when I watched that first death where Vecna is killing the cheerleader, I was like, wow, some kids who love Stranger Things are going to be absolutely traumatized by this season.
Yeah, but the Duffer Brothers were traumatized by Nightmare on Elm Street, and they were traumatized by all these other things.
It's part of the childhood experience. You should be.
You should be. And it's crazy because it opens up with that message of like, hey, we want to say that we know the world is in a sensitive place and Stranger Things is fiction. And I was like, dang, this is going places. This is going to get pretty intense. And yeah, it gets back to its old ways of like, it's not just like quest after quest after quest and objective, but what I liked about this season is like, one, we got the little in between moments, like while they're searching for their quest, we get funny dust in time. We get these funny little physical comedy notes where Max grabs the binoculars and stares just a little bit longer at Steve, and you're sitting there, and like the guys are just looking, and it's just like Steve, and you're just like, exactly what's going on here.
You're so right. I think it's way too easy, and I hear this complaint with Marvel a lot and with some of their Star Wars content that, balancing moments of tension with moments of levity is really difficult a lot of the times, because you're trying to maintain this level of emotional investment, but you don't want it to be such a heavy slog for your audience. you have to pepper in those little moments. And I think this season does that really, really well. And that's really hard to execute. So that's just another tip of the cap to the Duffer Brothers for being so good at what they do.
And one thing that Stranger Things does really well, and a lot of TV shows can struggle with it, is introducing new characters. Like, we got season 1. We could stay with that cast for 12 seasons and be satisfied. Like those kids were so fun. They gelled so well together. Season 2, we get Bob Newby, we get Mad Max,
Billy Hargrove, fan favorite.
We get Billy, which I want to get into because we didn't get Billy here, and it either way, but we didn't get Bob Newby either. But it's like but we get new characters. We do get new characters here, and I want to start with Eddie because I don't know about you, I wanted more of Eddie. I think we lost him for like an episode or two. He was like hiding. But I loved Eddie, and he did look 28 years old, but I also think that's 80s. I think that's another 80s thing that happens.
Yeah, being the super senior at your school, it didn't seem too far off base for me.
Yeah.
What I think you hit the nail on the head there, that it's so difficult to introduce new characters to a show, and every time there's a new season coming out and you get these character posters of the new characters, I'm always nervous. I'm like, but the dynamic from last season worked so well. Am I going to like these characters? Are they going to take too much screen time from the characters that I already like? And season after season, they prove that they can bring in characters that you will grow to love or hate, but at least elicit some strong emotion from you. Because even, Max season 2, I wasn't totally sold on her in the group. By season 3, in this season in particular, you're like, you absolutely love Max. She's totally one of the gang. And, she really gets a starring role in this. But before we move over to that, Eddie, just such a fun addition, and as kind of a cool foil to cool guy Steve, but who can still connect with, and the sort of conflict that they come into over Dustin's sort of idolization of the both of them is just such a fun dynamic, I think.
And just the whole Hellfire Club dynamic, in general, of like, I truly felt like this was a group of misfits who took their lives so seriously, and we get that we still get that coming of age tension you get from kids. Like, we got to remember, this is still a show like about kids facing monsters in their life, and and for a kid like Lucas, who also wants to be a hooper, and also still wants to be a nerd, and like to balance that life, and Eddie's kind of like in the middle. Then you get Jason, who's also this other role model who he didn't work for me, but I also think it's because he's short. I didn't feel much power from him.
This sounds like a complaint I heard distinctly from guys who played high school basketball. Was watching that guy play. Oh, these guys are way too fucking short. They never.
It's just like he didn't.
Okay.
Netflix does a pretty good job at like villains and bullies and stuff, and 13 Reasons Why. And even Steve Harrington was an absolute dick season 1. That was a great bully. And I don't know why I wasn't scared. And Jason technically wasn't a bully. He just wanted to avenge his girlfriend against the freak. And we'll see. That one was another storyline that kind of got left off. Like, oh shoot, we didn't quite see the action from the town hall yet. But maybe maybe that'll come together.
That was one of the things you deal with that month break in between. Kind of the build up and the finale. Cool way though to introduce sort of the elements of that satanic panic that actually happened in the 80s. And give that a face, just kind of that sort of Christian tension with these things that the church sees as being, ungodly and demonic things like, heavy metal and Dungeons and Dragons, which I think, most people will agree now are not going to, turn you into
they're saying the same. We're still blaming video games on things. Video games are the reason for all the problems in the world.
That was one of my favorite scenes. Was actually Erica being one of the only people who stands up at that town hall and is like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, this is ridiculous.
That's another character who's really come into her own. That could have just been like Mike's sister. That's just the little sister. She's just the little sister. But getting her involved in Dungeons and Dragons, and like she does have that just like tenacity to her and just fire. It's a good one. But to land the plane on Eddie, like it's like you're rooting for him. He fits in well. Maya Hawke's character, if you remind me her name, she was another one. Robin, introduced last season. She's still doing great. We love it. And there hasn't been a lot made about sexuality, which is like cool and fine. And if they did, that's fine too. But it's cool that we're just all hanging out. And like how the last season ended isn't like the focal point of this. but yeah, like you're just seeing some of these characters come into their own, because that was also my thing, is that like Millie Bobby Brown, I never thought should deserve credit for this show very, very much, because in the first season she just tilts her head down and lifts her fingers up, and like that's kind of what she doesn't talk. We don't hear much from her. We get a little bit of mama, papa screams, and we get that weird episode 8 or 6 in season 2, the X-Men episode.
I have no idea what you're talking
Doesn't
about.
exist. Not canon. Not canon.
No, definitely not canon. I agree with you on that.
But this season, we really get to like feel what Eleven's gone through and what she's dealing with. Like I'm feeling pain for her in classrooms and with Mike, and then with her powers, and then now with facing her past. Like I'm full blown on board that like, holy crap, you're doing so much with this character that like they might not have had it season 1 of what this was going to be. And I haven't listened to too many interviews or whatnot. I've stayed away from a lot of that stuff. But it's amazing that Eleven and Millie are getting their chance to like really truly shine. And it's not necessarily about the monster, but like it is about like their individual journeys. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And just to kind of segue that, because the whole California side of this story is very interesting, and that was one of the things I went into the season nervous about was, the scale is so much bigger here. We're not going to be in Hawkins as much anymore, and that's frightening, because I think for me, because Hawkins is the main character of the show that everybody kind of exists around, and they did a great job making everything interesting. And even when we talk about Eddie and Robin and what a great addition they are to the cast, and how they kind of round out the teenager squad, especially with Jonathan being in California, which is I don't think anybody can complain about, because Jonathan's probably the least interesting character on the show.
But dude, how did they do him so dirty that his character in this show is just that he's a stoner? Like I didn't love that, but anyways.
I mean, I'm not going to complain about Jonathan getting less screen time. I don't really find him engaging to watch. On the other hand, when you have somebody like Eleven, who now we're really seeing for the first time fully wrestle with having to try to adjust to a normal life when you've had about as abnormal a childhood as you possibly can, that first episode is heartbreaking, watching her get bullied, and then getting to go with her on that journey of, when they're doing these flashbacks, and I was like, Eleven really has killed a lot of people, and we've never really seen the impact that has on her explored, and getting to do that throughout this season and through that whole sequence of flashbacks was really intense and cathartic in a lot of ways. And like you said, going back to season 1, it answered all these sort of loose ends that have been kind of hanging since that first season, of even something as small as, well, how did she get out of the lab, this high tech facility in the first place, to how did she uncover these powers and become who she is. And so getting to fill in some of those gaps was a really enjoyable part of the season, I think.
And it was another like top tier storytelling to just lead us the whole time to believe, like, man, when is 11 going to go on this crazy killing spree? How are they going to show this? This is going to be insane.
What's going to be the breaking point that makes her snap?
Yeah, like are we going to not like 11 after this? Like, what's going to happen? And then you slowly start to see like, oh, who's this? Who's this guy? Like he's getting more and more. You know what? I might have seen him on my Twitter feed. Maybe, I think. And I started to piece it together that way, where I'm like, oh, okay. I think I see where this is now going.
Yeah.
And then the Benner line of, what have you done? Like, changes too. Because it's like, you thought it was, and it's just like, that's just really well done. We talked about it in, but Max, who, like, for me is my MVP. And I truly believe that I think we're gonna see Sadie Sink for a long time. Just her career and like she holds a lot of power in her like close-ups and in her performance, because she's like, if you look at every character, like a lot of them are along for the ride. Like you said, they exist in Hawkins. Dustin's a smart kid. Mike is crafty. All these things, but like you're talking about someone who's dealt with real loss, real personal pain.
Yeah. It sells.
And they all have, they've all lost whatever, but people have come back. Billy's not coming back. Barb's not coming back. Like we've gotten to look at characters who've truly gone through it, who hold a lot of weight, and for them to give such an awesome scene to freaking Max like
That was
that.
that episode 4 scene with Vecna playing
Yeah.
running up that hill is on the Mount Rushmore of Stranger Things scenes and moments.
Dude, it was flashing us back to her skating around Mike, to taking photos with 11, and
Ugh.
your whole body is just vibrating, going like, "Oh my gosh, you got to get out of here!" And the music's playing, and she can see her friends in the distance, like yelling, trying to get her, and then she rips up and she just runs.
Ugh.
Oh, but like.
Yeah.
But it all stemmed from like Billy, and she had to go and write letters to her family members, and Vecna was like truly going after her, bringing
Heavy.
Billy back, bringing her mom into it, and she just it blew me away at how well they handled that and how she just knocked it out of the park when she was the outsider. And I actually felt like you said season 2. I was a little bit on Mike's side, like, who's this new girl? Like, you can't bring like a new person into a group. I did feel that. But to now,
by this point, you are so sold on her.
She is a part of the group. She is, like, and just it sucked at the beginning of the season because she was so separate from everyone. Like, she was clearly like hood on, goes to the counselor, quiet to herself, and then to just get reacclimated to see them all. That was my thing in season 3. Is to me, it wasn't enough together. I did like the groups here and there, but we were together a lot this season. And the adults were doing their own thing too, but we get into that.
Yeah, and that took it back to season 1 a lot. I mean, season 1 had the most kind of clear delineation where you had the kids storyline, the teen storyline, and the adult storyline. The other seasons 2 and 3 definitely stray away from that a little bit and mix things up. They kind of go back to that a little bit in this one as much as they can. I mean, the teens are closer in age now, but you do still have the adult storyline with Hopper and Joyce and Murray, and then the kids in Hawkins and the kids in California. Well, actually, even before that scene that's before that whole sequence with Vecna and Max in the Upside Down, the shootout in California was crazy. That was one of those where I was like, damn, this extra budget they got is really going to the right places. Because just seeing Mike and Will and Jonathan in the middle of a federal shootout was just one of those moments that was like, holy cow, this season is crazy.
Yeah, it was like just like that one continuous take, and they're just busting in, and guys are dropping, and they've definitely showed off their like filmmaking kicks, like in this, like with all the different sequences of CGI, and seeing how they've like mixed practical with VFX, so it's not all. We still get a feel of something like real and tangible.
So let me ask you this, Dylan. I'm curious if you've seen any of this discourse on the internet yet. That some people who have finished the season and gone back and rewatched the rest of the show have pointed out that we may have been seeing Vecna from the very beginning. Have you heard this theory?
Haven't yet.
So you go back to the very opening of season 1 when Will is biking home from Mike's house, and he sees at the time, what we think is the Demogorgon in the road, and he veers off and crashes, and he runs home, and he locks the door, and he grabs the gun, and then the chain on the door starts getting slit open. What a bunch of people have pointed out is that as soon as he sees that figure and then crashes his bike, you hear the grandfather clock chime going in the background.
Wow.
And that, the telekinesis ability that opens the chain on the door is something, not a power that we're aware the Demogorgon has, but that we know Vecna has.
Yeah.
And even when when Will is hiding in the back shed, the fact that he doesn't get eaten when the Demogorgon is just kind of a predator creature. People trying to point out to the fact that maybe that was Vecna who originally took Will into the Upside Down. And then there's a couple other moments throughout the series where you hear that same grandfather clock sound effect that is kind of a motif throughout the season. Right now, I don't know if it's anything more than a fun fan theory, but some of that is enough to make me be like, wow, how much of this has been kind of hiding in plain sight the whole time.
Yeah, it's I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. Because like a lot of what Vecna does is the mind manipulation, and when you think of the Demogorgon, like you said, that's much more of like a dog or like a just a true animal. It was interesting how they did the like the version of the Demodogs were these insane bats too. Like, did you like those?
Those
bats?
were freaky.
Those were freaky.
I enjoyed that scene. I mean, the teenagers all going into the Upside Down was one of my favorite sequences. Of
jumping in the lake.
Season.
We haven't really got a lake sequence. That feels very like horror,
And just a footnote on that, I love the continuity in this show. Something like Lover's Lake, where that takes place, which, Bob Newby originally mentions back in season 2 when they're trying to map everything out and figure out where these routes are going.
Yeah.
They do that really well, and it's one of those things that makes Hawkins feel like a real place. And it's just one of my favorite things about the show is when you see those little things, a place you heard in Hawkins, you actually get to go see later on, seasons later, just makes it feel so real. But yeah, when Steve is there, getting, eaten by these bats, essentially, you're like, oh, wow, they're not going to kill Steve. They can't kill Steve. And he survives that, but then, Nancy's bandaging him up and that wound doesn't look good. And then he develops this very ominous cough by the end of the 7th episode. And it makes you wonder, are they setting us up for, a Steve Harrington death, maybe immediately after reconciling with Nancy? Would they do that to us?
Yeah. I kind of think they would. I would not put it past them. Maybe I'm in
denial. I'm kind of hoping that because it felt so obvious to me that it's a fake out, and that, maybe Jonathan is the one that bites the dust, since he doesn't really seem to have a role in this story anymore, opening the door for the Steve Nancy reunion. Maybe that's wishful thinking, though.
Do you like the Steve Nancy? Because to me, like, I like Nancy Jonathan, but
Nancy Jonathan was one of those things that it sounded nicer than it actually was.
Right.
The kind of will they, won't they.
And then when they were both outcasts at the newspaper, and they were both in the stuck situation. Maybe it was a situational thing.
I never really. Once they got together, I think that storyline and that relationship kind of lost its spark, and I never really felt the chemistry there after that. I don't know if you ever remember this. There was an episode of Friends where Joey was telling Chandler that anytime you see two people together on stage or filming something, and if that sexual tension is still there, it's because they haven't hooked up yet. But then you can tell once that spark on stage is gone, it's because they have hooked up off stage. I think that's a little bit of what I feel with the Nancy Jonathan storyline and Natalia Dyer and Charlie Heaton, is that it's just not there because they're too busy doing that in their real life. That could be nitpicky, though.
No, that's you honestly might have sold me there.
I do love the Nancy Robin relationship in this season. It's so awkward and it's so funny, and they just bounce off each other really well. They're so different, and they both clearly have a lot of different feelings, but fond feelings for Steve, and the way that Robin tries to hype up Steve to Nancy. It's just, especially their time at the insane asylum. Just really enjoyed any scene those two had together.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you could tell that that's the offspring of Ethan Hawke, and
just in her mannerisms. I mean, the way she talks sounds like Uma Thurman, and the way she kind of moves, her facial expressions look like Ethan Hawke. That's some strong genes rocking right there.
Yeah, the attention to detail was just it was just insane in the series, and especially in the season that where we get do you still have bikes? We got a bike sequence of a true flipping of upside down of them both heading to one spot. We get more drawings, and in a unique way where Nancy folds them up.
Drawings.
Dude, but and then I was like, wait, they're doing it again? How? How? They put up that house. We get a haunted house. We haven't got a haunted house. We get a lake. We get a haunted house. This gave me very. Did you watch Fear Street?
I haven't.
I was gonna say that this gave me Fear Street vibes, which is a really great story again about a town, except it's more like Goosebumpsy, so it's a little more it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's really well detailed, and it's a very satisfying trilogy. And yeah, they released that last year, but it was just cool to see that we kind of get it all back. I love that they used Light Bright. I'm like, dude, what other 80s reference there?
Exactly.
And my guy, talk to me about these walkie-talkies. Tell me where they got them from. Did they order them from Dr. Brown or no?
Because had to be. It's got to be a reference.
Come on, dude. Just the up and the down with it,
Yeah, there's just something so satisfying about that every time they do it. Well, even the lights, like you mentioned, the Light Bright, what a great way to tie up. You can't even call it a loose end because it's so small, but how did Will communicate with Joyce in season 1? This is what that visually looks like, the way that you can play with the sort of, electromagnetic, glow that's present in the Upside Down. It's just the way that the attention to detail, even that extends to the set dressing. Like that's something I don't usually notice when I watch something, but every house you go into, every location feels so authentic and lived in and like time period accurate as much as I would imagine if somebody wasn't around in the 80s. It never feels like you're walking into a set of somebody's house. It feels like you're actually going into somebody's house, whether you're in, the Russian church that Hop is hiding out in, or the Wheeler's basement, or Joyce's California home. Everything feels so authentic, and that's just another thing that grounds this show that is so, crazy and outlandish, but makes it still feel like it could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another criticism I had of 3. What I didn't love Russia tie-in. I thought, that's another great 80s reference, I guess you could say. Russia is a good 80s reference.
The Cold War.
The Cold War,
bro.
a good, great reference. But I really enjoyed these scenes with Hopper, and another one, we get a really good character moment with him. He was the end of Stranger Things 1 that made you go, oh my gosh. But we get another like Hop experience where he's fighting for his life, but he's also coming to grips with like his life and why he's chosen to live, and this Russian guard who at first you're just like, this guy, he's just a scumbag, is gonna get him out maybe or screw him over,
right? And
then they end up battling side by side, and Murray, who has been hit or miss for me too. I love Murray. Like Murray, it was just awesome. Like the karate was silly, but it was awesome.
It was fun. It's one of those where you're like, really, like when I hear criticisms of that, like, oh, that was goofy. I'm like, really, in a show that has just all this wild, outlandish shit, this guy learns karate, and that's where the realism is broken for you. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, that whole storyline and actually getting to see Joyce getting in on the action was fun for once, rather than just being kind of the person who's pulling, trying to connect all these threads. Her being in the middle of the action was great. But Enzo was one of my favorite characters this season. That actor, I think his name is Tom Wallachia, who, I recognized his voice the whole time I was watching, and it wasn't until after that I was like, it's Jack and Hagar from Game of Thrones. That's why he sounds so familiar. He's just a very fun presence to have on the screen, and his kind of glibness bouncing off of Hopper's such a serious demeanor was a lot of fun. I mean, we got to be honest, Hopper's got to be on that Mount Rushmore of 80s action heroes, right? I mean, that guy is just an unbelievable badass. Like, put him up there with the John McClanes and the Rambos. I mean, the stuff he does this season to escape a Russian prison camp, fighting for his life against demogorgons, everything about it. I'm like, Hopper is an unbelievably iconic action hero now.
Yeah, dude, if I told you in the same series would we see like kids playing same season, kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, like a drug deal gone wrong, ending with a cheerleader murdered, and then Hopper sitting in on a Russian prisoner feast, telling these men why they don't stand a chance. Because that scene too was another one where I'm like, holy shit, Hopper. He like tapped into like David Harbour tapped into like, yo, what if I was Hopper and I went through all this shit and I just told some of these Russian prisoners, these Russian murderers, like traitors,
who think they're hard,
who think they're awesome, who think they're ready to go, and you could hear the defeat in his voice, and him just piecing it all together, because you as a viewer are going like, man, why are they? And I even said, I'm like, they must be fattening them up, and then I was like, and then dude, Hopper just broke it all down, and that's another thing. Like I felt is that the series does a really good job of revealing these things to you as you're also realizing them yourself. Like, because when Hopper breaks that down, you're just like, holy crap, this makes sense. It's a good tie to the fact that the Russians were trying to use the upside down for something, and it's like, wow, if they're trying to really create these super soldiers out of these gyms, that would make sense, or these jails, that would make sense. And it was just awesome. Like from the peanut butter to the plane ride to just the snow. Like we're in like we see every element in this show, and it's beautiful.
It's true. In that same vein as that experience of catching on to what's going on just a few moments before it's actually revealed to the characters. That's one of those things that's really hard to do when you're writing a script and writing a story, and it's super satisfying for your audience. I had that feeling when during Eleven's flashback to, the massacre at Hawkins' lab, and she's walking through the halls, trying to find, this guy who's been, befriending her and helping her escape. And you see through the doors, and it takes you back to the opening scene of the season, and you see that everybody who's been killed, their limbs are all snapped around, and in the same way that Vecna does. And that was just that one last visual puzzle piece that fell into place that I was like, oh my God, it's him. Okay, it's one. And that feeling of getting it right ahead of when the characters do is just so satisfying, and they do that so well in the show.
Yeah. Now, one thing about Vecna. So Jamie Campbell Bower.
Right.
So, do you know what other major franchise he was in? He was in for a split second.
Oh,
so he was in Twilight. He was in Twilight.
Oh, that's right. I know what I recognized him from.
What did you recognize him from? Because
he's young Grindelwald from
Yes.
Deathly Hallows.
He absolutely is. Which I didn't get it until I looked at his IMDb today. I mixed him up. I thought he was the same guy who plays It under all the makeup too.
One of the Skarsgårds.
He's one because he's also very they have similar just crazy.
Yeah, that very
faces.
angular Nordic.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. No, yeah, that it was a funny little thing to see that he was young Grindelwald before Grindelwald became.
He put on a really cool performance too, because he comes in and immediately when Eleven finds herself in this sort of dream hallucination, he puts up this very creepy, unsettling vibe that slowly kind of warms into something that you're like, oh, this guy's going to be an antagonist, and oh, he's actually going to be an ally to Eleven, and he's helping her escape, and then everything goes down. You're like, oh my God, this is actually the big bad guy of this season. Really cool performance, just the way he was able to kind of manage the own energies that character was putting off to such a degree.
And the way that last 30 minutes went of that final episode, I mean, I know they're standing in a rainbow room, toy room, but that felt like a kind of Anakin Obi-Wan type exchange of such you make a choice right now or this is it. This is the line
movie vibe to it of that final showdown between the student and the master, and it was
the master with the student of and I've done everything for you, they've done everything for each other to get to this point, and then but this is the line, and it was just really great, and seeing him go at it and seeing how this is she sent Vecna into wherever. So it's does she have that power to send things, to create things?
Right. That opened up a whole can of worms.
And that's where I was watching with McCall, and I'm sitting there, and I am again just so overcome by the fact we're watching New Stranger Things. I can't tell you enough, man. It kept me being damn, this is cool. But it also made me go why can't Stranger Things enter the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, MCU type? I mean, maybe it's closer to MCU than the other ones, and maybe the MCU is whatever. But could Stranger Things be this massive thing that we are going to be continually developing for the next 20, 30 years? Whether we want that or not, of course, obviously, if they gave us just Stranger Things 1 and then left us with that, I would have been this was amazing. But it's built such a cool, unique world where there are rules, and the rules are actually being fleshed out in this season really
and
well.
You're so this has been here the whole time. These rules have existed, and now they're getting explained to us 8 years later. And I'm I love the patience with that.
And as a fan, of these fantasies, we're very tough on it. DC movies are crap. New Harry Potter not being received well, but Stranger Things is doing what a successful fantasy franchise should do, which is create a world, create rules, and then just keep going.
Right.
Just different out.
You bring up a couple really interesting points. That this thing does have legs. And for me, you want stories to last as long as they should. And I think I feel that, this is something that I really don't want to outstay its welcome. Like you said, season 1, you could have just left on its own and been perfect. I think it's an incredible testament to the Duffer Brothers and the whole team that works on that show, that they have created now 4 seasons, and in this last season might as well be 2, just on the sheer amount of content in it, but that is so consistent. And season 1 is top in my mind. Everything else is right below it. You're nitpicking on how you make your order. I think it's one of the most consistently quality pieces of entertainment that I've seen in a long time. And I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be in the in the Harry Potter realm, in the MCU realm. Lord of the Rings, I have in a slightly higher tier in my mind, just because those movies are so incredibly well made and the music and all that. But is it an issue of just being a television series still, compared to where those are movies? And as much credit as we give prestige TV in this era, is there still that sort of hegemonic dominance of cinema and the movie experience for whatever reason? When and this is the most cinematic TV I maybe have ever seen. These feel like 8-hour films. Like they're meant to be watched that way more than they are to be consumed 1 week at a time.
Right. It's it was just made me think that, like, why not? Because, like, if I was a kid, dude, if you were 12, 13 right now, like, these kids are your heroes, maybe more than those things. Like, if we were born 10 years later, 15 years later, this might be our thing. That was like, dude, when I was a kid, Stranger Things came out, and I watched it, and I grew up with it, and, like, I'm going to live with it forever, and I'm going to keep watching it forever, just like we did with the Harry Potter movies. We grew up with those movies. We were only a few years behind those kids. Oh, maybe a little more, but, like, we were right there with them. Of, like,
maybe that's what feels so special about the series. I feel that way about the show now. I mean, I'm confident saying this is my favorite TV show, and it has been since season 1, and every season has so far delivered and kind of renewed my love for it. That's definitely a way that I feel, going forward. I put these, in my own rankings up there with my favorite franchises. But I think, obviously this is a show that spans generations, which is so cool. I have little cousins that love this show. My parents love this show. It's just something that when it comes out, everybody, no matter your age group, gets to connect over. But I feel like you and I are maybe in a really unique position to enjoy this, is because, we got that 80s nostalgia passed down to us from our parents, grew up watching those old 80s movies, loving them. So then when we get to watch Stranger Things, you get to kind of feel that feeling of watching one of those movies for the first time, being, in the group of kids and enjoying it. And then being also, I think I was 19 when season 1 came out, getting to empathize with Jonathan, Nancy, and Steve, and go through all that with them. That, I feel like I was the perfect age. When I watched that first season, I was like, wow, they literally custom made a TV show for me. Like, this is exactly everything 100%. That I want in a show.
This is what we wanted Ready Player One to be.
Right. And it's scary to think about, milking a franchise. Maybe this is what people who grew up with, who saw Star Wars in the 80s felt, when the prequels were coming out. They're like, no, please leave it alone. And don't get me wrong, I love the prequels, but that's kind of how I feel about the idea of expanding Stranger Things larger than it needs to be. I think the scale of this show is so important, and they've done a very careful and meticulous job growing it season by season to it's a pretty large scale show now, but it still has this, the heart of it is in Hawkins, that I think if you start doing spin-offs and going too many different directions with it, it's going to dilute that magic of this original stuff, in my opinion.
No, it's like that's where I go, is I'm like, well, when there are usually clear characters of, like, oh man, you could do a whole series about them, and I think that's what they wanted to do with that season 2 episode that
felt like a test pilot.
Yeah, it totally was. It totally felt like that, because if that worked and everyone was like, holy crap, this is awesome, I wanted to go to Chicago or wherever they were, but I don't know if it's just like, dude, we might just get a 1-11 story and that's it, or then we're gonna go backwards in time, or we're gonna go to a different.
If anything, you could do the It Chapter 2 with this series, which would be incredibly fun. Once all our kid actors are all grown up, everybody coming back to Hawkins for one final battle. We film that 15, 20 years from now. That I could potentially get behind. But that, I think, would kind of be the extent of what I would want to get out of this show, because there's even like some comics and I think some prequel novels and things in the Stranger Things universe that I'm really not interested in. Like I just, for me, this is such a visual medium.
Yeah. And Stranger Things, what it could live as, and I think it should, and maybe its goal was, is to just, it's like, it really is a love letter to the 80s. Like,
Yeah.
I was trying to, like, I was telling McCall, like, I was like, yo, Stand By Me, and, like, E.T., and, like, all the, like, E.T. Phone Home was written on the phone booth, too. I saw,
it was?
yeah. And, like, just all these different things, and, like, the different angles that they shoot things. And I remember when they were leaning out of the, when they were looking at the newspaper, and they're looking at each other, they were like each on like the far third, just like leaning over talking. And I was like, dude, I couldn't place it, but I think it was like from Pretty in Pink that same exchange happened. That like looking over the computers, like talking to each other. And I was like, dude, this is just, it's a super referential heavy, but even if you miss the references, it's still great.
Yeah, it creates that atmosphere that's so distinctly 80s. And I don't know what that word is for, like, nostalgia for a time that you didn't experience, but it gives you that in such a fat dose that you're just like, put it right in my veins.
Yeah, right when the, like, I forget which episode ended, I was just like, damn it, why was I not born in 1970? I'd be.
Look how much swag there is here. Why can't I get a slice of that?
Yeah, it'll yeah. So there's supposed to be season 5, right?
They
like
say that's the final season.
Which, yeah, I don't know how they'll end this. That actually makes me feel a little better. I thought this was going to be the end, but I still don't think this is gonna feel like, I would guess, more Empire Strikes Back-y, of they're gonna leave a lot left to be done.
Potentially.
And it's gonna be a little more clear because, dude, this season was an absolute mystery. We had no clue this was gonna happen. They could, like, they've done them all. Like, what else could they do? We're here.
Here we are.
Another beast to destroy.
Very much looking forward to being in San Diego with you for the release of Volume 2.
Yeah,
I'm assuming we're going to have to fire up a watch party, and I'm going to need everybody to be locked in on that. I don't want people texting. I don't want people fucking blending frozen margaritas. I want silence and focus on Volume 2.
That's right. Well, dude, that was like McCall. We were going to New York, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to, like, download Stranger Things for your phone, like for New York?" And I was like, McCall,
you crazy?
I don't have a 70-inch 4K TV to watch Stranger Things on my iPhone 11. It is not what I do. I respect that show too much.
Exactly.
I will watch the Adam Sandler. I watch the Adam Sandler basketball movie Hustle. That movie is meant for my phone.
That's fine. But the cinematic experience that is Stranger Things, that we only get once every couple of years, that means so much. I want to be sat down and focused. Because even when I got back from Denver, Kat was like, "Oh, come down to Tucson and visit me," and I was like, girl, I really, really want to. I'm not saying that Stranger Things is more important than you, but I need to be alone and locked in on this show in my room with my headphones on, with zero distractions for the next 10 hours. That's how much I love this show.
Yeah, and it was worth every second.
Yeah, this season.
I was talking to the guys, though, as I was like, because it's like 3 hours, and we're on vacation, and so it's like, what if everyone watched on Thursday night the first episode, or episode 8, we'll say, but then we all save episode 9, and Friday night we all avoid everything, and then we all sit down, because look, we have Saturday, we have Sunday, and we have Monday.
Yeah,
and
totally.
we have, after we watch it, to go nuts talking about it till the sun comes up. Like,
that sounds like a lot of fun to me. I'm into that. See, I didn't realize that it was going to be nearly 4 hours of content still.
Yeah. There's a lot left.
I know we'll have to talk logistics on this, because if we save it for Friday night, then I have to pace my drinking throughout the day in order to be sharp enough to watch that. And San Diego and pacing don't really go together.
Well, I mean, we could watch it at 1 in the afternoon, but that also,
you want it to be dark,
Yeah, that also is a little tough.
I'm glad that we were on the same page about how particular we are about the vibe that's necessary when you watch Stranger Things.
Now, I gotta also ask you there, when we are in San Diego, are you wanting to play volleyball on the beach or football on the beach? Because you have a mustache there that would tell me, I'm going to say football. And because you were clearly impacted, sir, by Top Gun Maverick. I've yet to really talk about it. We can touch on it here. But Top Gun Maverick, I didn't want it to be good. I didn't want to have the
You
time
didn't.
of
It
my
did
life.
give you a damn choice, did it? Though.
Dude, I didn't want it, but I trusted and all that I heard, and what a ride! What a perfectly done summer blockbuster.
I mean, the way I see it, there's only been one other time in human history that you have been able to go to San Diego with your friends the summer that a Top Gun film was released. And if you don't do that with a mustache and a pair of aviators and go play some volleyball with your boys on the beach, why are you even there? What are you even doing?
Did you have a big connection to the first one?
I like it as much as I
It's
think
very erotic. Very erotic.
It is. So I actually rewatched a couple weeks ago. It is extremely homoerotic.
Well, I mean, dude, even the sex scene is like the "Take My Breath" though, and it's like the silhouettes and like that's a very like wow. That's like for the time. I think that was a very forward sex scene of like a whoa.
Yeah, it seems like. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen the clip of Tarantino on the set of Pulp Fiction talking to I forget which actor, where he's very adamant that it's not even an implication that Top Gun is explicitly a film about a man accepting his own homosexuality. I was like, well, if Tarantino says it, it's got legs.
Yeah.
I love the original Top Gun. I love this one even more just for that. I mean, I don't know how you don't love watching fighter planes do fighter plane things. Yeah. It's just fun.
And there weren't quick cuts. It wasn't like, shoot, where am I? It was, dude, you're seeing the motion. We'll cut every 3 seconds.
Fails, where this one really succeeds is putting you in that cockpit and feeling the speed and the intensity. I mean, it's such a goofy testosterone filled movie, but I was smiling the whole time. I was like, I'm having a blast right now. This is so fun.
Yeah, dude, that was a good one. I really do feel bad for every person who is waiting for it to come out on VOD.
Missing out. Worth going to the movies for. Getting that on the big screen is, and I know that's in the marketing of every movie now, that must be seen on the big screen. Please come back to the movie theaters. This is one you should go see at the big screen.
But this year, though, we've gotten Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is another one you saw in theaters?
Yeah.
That's another one that was like, how do you watch that anywhere else? I mean, that was such a visually sometimes uncomfortable sausage fingers movie to see. But like, it was such a good theater experience too, where I'm just like laughing and I'm crying and I'm scared and I'm
right. That one was one that was even more than seeing it on a big screen. It was the social experience of seeing it, of being in the theater with other people. Top Gun was funny because I remember walking in with my girlfriend and just seeing that I was clearly not the only guy who would drag their girlfriend to this movie. Like, I looked around and there were just all these couples scattered across the theater, all these girls on their phone, and all these guys just like, here we go. We're finally here.
Dude, it's a good summer of things coming out, I gotta say.
We're looking out content wise. So
yeah, the Bullet Train.
I'm excited to go.
Bullet Train might cap off our summer. Dude, come on.
I mean, that one looks like it has the Top Gun feel too, where it's just like it just looks like fun, and also Brad Pitt. I mean, what a stat cast! Tokyo looks amazing as always.
My friend who works in the industry, she said that like if a movie is being marketed like crazy, that means the studio really believes in it. If like suddenly you stop hearing about a movie like Space Jam 2 at the end of its stretch, there wasn't a lot of marketing for it. It's because they're like, dang, this movie's not that
Crimes
good.
of Grindelwald kind of situation.
Yeah,
if it's like, one of those movies where like, oh, that came out.
Oh wait, yeah, they already come. But the fact that Bullet Train has ads on the NBA Finals, and I'm seeing it, and it's saying coming out in August or coming out late July or whenever it is, I'm like, dude, this thing could be really great.
I'm excited for that one.
We got a Jordan Peele movie coming soon too. Gosh,
we're eating. And then finale of Obi-Wan is this week.
Content, baby. That's been good too. Content. Yeah, that started on Memorial Weekend too.
Goodness. Yeah, and if you were lucky,
and Barry, I just finished Barry.
Oh, I have to catch up.
Yeah, Barry. I don't know. It was a unique season. It was definitely not like the other two. But yeah, Zach, thanks for coming on, dude. We might have to run this back, dude. Maybe I'll bring the stuff and we'll do it
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. I have about I have about 6 microphones. We can get like 3 or 4 cameras.
Get a little round table discussion after the finale.
Get a little round table. Yeah, we'll do interviews as if
play a
we
little
were
Blackout, Stranger Things edition.
Oh, Blackout on the DBN. Dude, we have to. I can't wait to run it back. Dude, this is our, what, 4th of July in the row? Maybe 3rd, 4th?
It might be.
Might be 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original one was when season 3 came out.
Yeah, it was Newport. And then we did Pacific Beach, Oceanside, back to San Diego.
Man, what a tradition. Let it never die.
What a life, dude. I'm excited to see you. Thanks for coming on, man. This was fun.
My pleasure. Anytime.
I could call you and we could do this over the phone. Or
you never have to twist my arm to give me a platform to rant about movies and TV shows that I like.
I do, Zach.
Wait for that opportunity.
I think there are tens of people that would say that you're their favorite person to talk to about anything, and I am one of those tens because you always have good things to say. You always have good insights. You always pull things, and I'm like, dude, well, yeah, of course, Zach saw that.
That is very sweet of you. There's nobody else I would rather bounce these kind of conversations off of.
Dude, like one of my favorite moments in Japan was when we were sitting in that Osaka weird Airbnb, and me, you, and Mike were sitting around talking about the latest MCU movie, talking about the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi, and dude, that was one of my favorite times. That was so good.
Me too. Great memories, man. Great memories. We got a couple more to make soon.
Hey, it's true. October. All right, Zach. Well, thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks for listening. Go follow Zach. You know, he's always posting his nights out in Scottsdale and Tucson.
That is not
true. That's what he's been up to lately.
Erroneous.
Thanks again, Zach. I can say it a million times, but
my pleasure. Thank you, Dylan. Thanks for having me on the platform, man. Best of the DBN.